Hello everyone, I have here the LEGO Batman Mech versus Poison Ivy Mech set. It's a strange concept if you just take it at face value by the name. Why would Poison Ivy need a mech? Well, she doesn't, and they didn't give her one in this Poison Ivy Mech set. They gave her something that makes a lot more sense actually. Mechs are not her style, but this totally is. It's a little bit of ground with some roots growing out of it, with some plant material growing out of it, a bit of a trunk, and as you go up, it becomes more and more substantial. And you have all these leaves and branches and things, and tendrils and vine elements, which completely makes sense. So this would be mobile. She would be able to move around with this using plant motion, and she would be able to travel around with it and use it as a mobile weapons platform, because there's the whole kinetic aspect of being able to cause this to move and to grow vine elements out and to grab things, use them use the bits of it as whips, use the trunks for bludgeoning. These almost look like they could be hands, so you could probably grab some things. And you can also fire off some poisonous flowers, which have some poisonous pollen that they would give off, I'm sure. A little stud shooter there with a couple of pieces stacked up, and you have a couple of those to use as projectiles. She just stands there controlling the thing. She's just kind of attached to the back of it, and of course she can be removed from that very easily. She's just attached with a couple of studs right now. And in order to defeat this thing, you're going to have to beat it. Like, get right up on top of it and beat upon it. Although, I suppose you could also fire at it from a distance. But the main thing that they want you to do here in terms of the built-in action feature is to knock it over. So anything that hits it hard enough, high enough, will knock it back like that. And that's supposed to be, what it looks like to defeat Poison Ivy here. Once you can get that to happen, then you've won. Okay, it's simple enough. This does feel a little bit wobbly, but it doesn't come apart easily. It is only attached with a single stud down there at the base, and there's a lot of weight up here. So if you get rough with it, you eventually will get that opened up. But as long as you stick the brown portion here, this center, I don't know what that is, consider it a claw, spike, whatever it is, push that all the way through this foliage piece and into the cone piece there. I almost said cylinder, the cone piece. That really helps quite a bit. And that's the Poison Ivy Mech, as they call it. I think this totally makes sense, and I think it looks pretty good. The Batman Mech, or Bat Mech, as it were, is a traditional mech. It's fully mechanical, and in that sense, it's possibly a little bit easier to relate to understand. The build for this is strange, mostly by virtue of the order of operations. If you check out my build video, you'll see what I'm talking about. It just doesn't go together in kind of the expected way of, building the center, and then building the legs, and then building the arms, or anything like that. They group things in a strange way that I suspect is the result of optimizing for flow of the pieces through the factory or something. I don't know. But, in the end, it's ultimately just Lego, and you just put pieces together. We've got this spinning blade over here with some bat fans on it, or bat blades perhaps, and you can also spin the saw separately. That's going to be certainly very good for cutting up vines and such, so it makes sense to have it in this set. You are able to articulate those arms, bring them up and down, and also out a little bit. You can move these pauldrons to keep them out of the way, to make sure that you have all the articulation that you can reasonably get out of these ratcheted joints here. You're not able to rotate this around, so you're not able to bring this across the body, unfortunately. A little bit of limitation there, but at least everything does hold itself together pretty well. You have wrist articulation. That's useful to put it into this form, or you can turn it this way, and look at that. You got a pretty nice hand, so you can grab things. That's actually very nice. Only has a total of 4 fingers, but I think it's pretty good. It's better than what they usually give us, and the overall proportions there are pretty nice. On the other side, you just have a hand, again, with the ability to rotate at the wrist, but it also has a couple of stud shooters on top, which makes sense. Right there. It's pretty good. I like it. What else? Oh, legs. let's talk about the legs. It has knees. Well, can you call those knees, or are they just high ankles? Whatever they are articulation points close to the middle of the legs, which is great. It's something we don't see all that frequently. You need either that. You need either that or a good ankle joint, and here this kind of serves as both. So you're able to bring this forward and get it into a motion pose. Didn't really intend for that right there, but you are able to get this onto one foot. You are able to get one leg moving forward. These are not able to articulate further forward because they do have this stopper here, which is intentional just to keep it from being too loose. You can remove that piece if you want. You can get actually more articulation out of it, but this is not bad. This is definitely not bad. You can also change the toes, and these have enough friction in them. The toe on each foot, I guess it's just one. They have enough friction to actually hold some weight. So let's see if I can get this into a pose. There we go. So that is a simple pose that actually puts all of the weight of the right side of the body onto just the toe on that side. So that's a useful additional thing that you can use for better poses potentially. Let's see if I can get this to go farther out. I think I'm reaching the limit now. Maybe if I can bring this in just a little bit. Yeah, I'm pretty much reaching the limit. That wasn't supposed to fall out. We'll get to that in a second, but I can splay the legs a bit. There we go. Okay. That's still not quite right. I can rotate this around, get it a little bit more flat with that toe. There we go. Yeah. So I'm causing some separation there. Basic story that I'm trying to get across here is that this does have useful articulation, probably more than most mechs that they do. Not the best. Certainly the arms aren't the best, but I like these wrists. I just wish that you could bring the arms across the body a little bit better. Got the little bat head design up here. Uses just a few stickers, not too many. They make good use of all these gunmetal gray colored bat pieces around the whole thing. And this opens up in the front to give you access, and also on the top to give you access to the control area where you just stand Batman. He's just attached with his legs to the base. He doesn't have any control levers or anything to hold on to. I think that's okay. I wish it closed up a little better. I think I might be able to change the orientation of those two little arms in there to make it close up just a little bit closer. He is leaning back as far as he can go right now. I feel like I would like to reduce that gap in there just a little bit. As designed, though, it's a little bit gappy, so you can see his face through there. I would prefer not to see that. And then this thing, all right, so I mentioned that we would talk about this. It's a net shooter. Whoopsie, that's not good. That's a little bit annoying, actually. You have to kind of avoid it carefully, otherwise that will definitely fall off too easily. But by default, it's in this stowed position. Almost looks like it would be a thruster for a jump pack back there. But you bring it up and extend it, and let me get that net piece. Notice they're not using the new net shooter that they came out with. That was already used in the city line. They've gone back to using the big jet engine housing, which is interesting. I think it's just color was available, and or the size and the connection points for it. But you're supposed to, stuff a net in there. This is a nice feeling material, but it doesn't like to get bundled up. It wants to stay free, man. The idea is that you push the plunger back here and you knock that out, and sometimes it'll unfold properly. If you fold it just right, you might get the technique down to get it to unfold always. These are cool in concept, but they rarely ever actually hook on to anything. I've done demonstrations before where I tried, just using the builds as intended, and they just don't work that great. But the idea is that you would try to net Poison Ivy here, and even just trying to put it on her directly, it's not really grabbing. So it's more of a thought that counts kind of thing here. If you can get it stuck, great. But otherwise, I really recommend, if you want to take this down, just go right up to her and just punch her in the face. The villain Firefly here looks fantastic to me, fully built up with the pack and the flames coming out and the flamethrower. This just looks like a great action display pose to me. I love this. I think they've done a really fantastic job here using a maximum number of the power blast and splat pieces, the little pack of superheroes action translucent parts that can be used to represent different types of fire and power and things depending upon the colors. They just go together very nicely here, and they harmonize well. I like it. I like the fact that you have to build up the pack from individual pieces. I like how much building actually goes into this in total. Very nice use of these parts. The only one thing here that is not good at all is the fact that it's very front heavy in this pose with the flamethrower fully out with the maximum amount of flame streaming out of it. It's extremely front heavy. Really wants to tip forward at a moment's notice. So it's not stable. It will stay if you don't breathe on it and you don't vibrate the room at all. Like, don't walk around. Just stay perfectly stable. But otherwise, it definitely wants to fall forward. Now, you can cheat a little bit. You can move some of these pieces, get them to not be properly attached. So it's kind of angling back just a bit like that. It's not a legal connection, but if anybody complains about it, you can just say, I'll make it legal. But it's just one option for dealing with that. Otherwise, if you don't have the flamethrower out all the way, it helps a lot with stability, a lot. If you don't have a lot, not 100%. If you don't have all of the flame attached to the end of that, it also helps. You can bring one of these things in. A lot of things can help with that, but no matter what, it's going to be front heavy here, and they don't really give you any solid option for dealing with that. But gosh, it sure looks good. Seems worth it to me to add in one extra piece, give it some sort of extra long base or offset it somehow if you can. Getting in a little closer, this appears to be based on the Batman animation series version of Firefly. I am definitely not a DC Comics or superheroes in general comics historian or scholar or anything, so I might be off on that. There may be a better match, but this just looks like a very good, a perfect match really in Lego form to that form. And I think the print on the torso looks very good. No print for the hips is too bad, but it's not really necessary. The small amount of print used for the helmet I think is fine. And the design, I think, is a pretty good match. As for the head used under there's only one facial expression. And I think it actually is a good match as well. Not the best print there. There's a little bit of wonkiness around the top part of the lip. But the expression, I think, is pretty proper. This whole figure makes sense to me. Poison Ivy, meanwhile, is kind of plain. We had gotten a really, really amazing looking Poison Ivy in recent memory, and here they've rolled back to go to a simpler comic style. I feel like that's half intentional, that they didn't want it to look too good in a way, too detailed, but it's also kind of cheap. I don't know, it just feels like a step back. And still, Lego's printing of skin tones is not good. It's really not good, and it bothers me. It's just too bad. It's supposed to be skin tone, and it's just not thick enough. It's just not opaque enough. Even the hairpiece that I just took off has no printing on it. It's just a single color. The faces are pretty good. Gosh, the skin tone on the back does not look good. The faces are pretty good. The choice of hair is good. The bright red is great, but it's just a step down. It feels like a classic, almost a retro edition version of this figure. The Flash is also included with some more of the power blast or burst pieces attached together to good effect. It's a pretty good looking Flash with the dual molded legs. Excellent. No print on them, but I think that's okay. Again, for this animated style or comic style. And the torso print looks really good to me. Print for the little winglets on the helmet is okay. Could have been better. But yeah, the print on the back of the torso looks good. It's just great to get those dual molded legs, which are pretty perfect. They're just so crisp that that delineation between the red and the yellow is almost invisible unless you get really, really close to it. This is a rubbery style head. Bad skin tone printing again for that face, just too bad. Here, even worse, because it's not only lacking opacity, but it has the stamp marks in it. You know, you see all the little parts where air got in there, or possibly even a little bit of other debris, some solid debris or something. So that's unfortunate. You know, kind of does injustice to this figure that is otherwise very good. Last up, Batman. Well, there's more confirmation that this is indeed intended to be a throwback kind of retro styled set, but I'm still not going to give the Poison Ivy figure too much benefit of the doubt because the last one that they made was so much better. They could have put something extra on there. But this Batman, for what he is, I think looks pretty good. Would have been nice to get some print for the hip, though. Doesn't need them for the legs. Doesn't need any for the legs. But the hip piece, I think, could have added some nice detail. Got the modern style of cape piece, of course. The print on the back of the torso looks good. Yeah, that's pretty proper. It's a little bit offset, strangely, but it really doesn't bother me that much. I mean, most of the time, you're not even going to see that print at all. And he has two faces. There's one. The headband is a little bit worn there, but yeah. Fortunately, you don't really suffer much from that when you put the cowl over it on either side. But it's just another little bit of symptom, I think, of Lego's very poor printing right now, especially on minifig pieces, because we've gotten a lot of these in the past that looked so much better than that had much closer to a proper white band for the headband or eye line area. Looking at the volume of stuff here, not just in the picture, but in person, and considering it has 4 figures, I personally would want to value this at about $35 US. When you consider that it has 375 pieces, not too many of them being tiny pieces, and a fair number of them being medium-sized to large-ish sized, and with interesting color combinations and such. I think that $40 US is not out of the question. I would definitely prefer to see it come down to 35, but it's not bad as it is. And yeah, I think the builds are good. The selection of figures is good. I like this non-mech thing here. I think the Bat Mech is decent. I think it's better than many mechs that Lego has done in the past. I really wish that he was able to bring the arms across sideways. That's one thing that's missing, but otherwise it's pretty good. It's pretty posable. It's more posable than most. I like these things always. They just provide so many options for things that you can do. The net shooter really does not work well. It's basically just a little thing to augment your imagination, but it doesn't take the place of it at all, because you're not going to make that happen ever. The Firefly setup with his stand and everything, I think is fantastic. I love that, except for the fact that it does fall over easily. But with a little bit of customization, I believe you can rectify that, or at the very least, attaching it to a studded base. Overall, I feel like this is a pretty successful set, with the exception of the poor prints on the figures especially, and the limited amount of printing for Poison Ivy. If they were 100%, if the designer, forgetting about the bean counters and the pencil pushers, if the designer really wanted this to be a simplified looking Poison Ivy, I get it, but I still wish that there was a little bit more detail. It's just a matter of establishing expectation, which they have done now, and I know they can do so much better than that. But yeah, it's partially a subjective thing. Anyway, leftover pieces from this set, there are quite a few, including a couple of the extra Power Blast or Burst pieces, which is great. Some Batarang type stuff, some hollow studded stuff. A very good selection. Plus, they also have a couple extra studs for the stud shooters on the Bat Mech. I did a build for this set that you can find over on my build channel, which I will link to right now because I'm done. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you later.